Week 3 of dreams. Dreams are an interesting concept. In week 3 of a series called Dream, last week we talked about the dreams you have. Maybe it's dreams to achieve big things. We also dream at night. And last week we talked about how we wouldn't have things in life like Google and Avatar and like the atom and the sewing machine, things like that without dreams. Those things came to their inventors in dreams. But I want to acknowledge an elephant in the room that maybe you hear about these incredible dreams where these amazing inventions were created and things like that, and you may be thinking this, all of my dreams are either immoral, illegal, or weird. Is there just to acknowledge an elephant in the room? And to that I say, join the club. Look at a few of these memes. I found some dream memes here, just a fun phrase. What it feels like when you try to punch in your dream. Has anyone experienced that before? Like you're trying to fight in your dream, and I have this reoccurring dream that my legs are too tired to move, and I can't run. How about this next one here? My dream and versus what I actually remember. Is that anyone relate to that one? Like you only remember the smallest pieces of your dream. How about this next one? Spent so much time chasing others in their dreams, I forgot to chase my own. Poor Freddy Krueger. Is that his name? Is that who that is? Okay, I never saw those because I'm not into the whole scary movie thing. How about the next one? Never pee in a dream. That's just a word to the wise. Never pee in a dream. How about another one here? A psychologist. All dreams have meaning. My dreams. Another similar one. Check out this next one. All dreams have meaning. They all have meaning. How about this next one here? This is last. Friend, I had a dream where I kissed my crush. My dreams. Dreams are weird. There's a reality that dreams are a weird thing. It's a weird topic, and we can cover everything from dreams and your personal goals for your life and for your faith, which is a route we're going to take for the rest of this series. We can also take the dreams that you have when we sleep. But the reality is that dreams are a powerful thing. They are things that God has used throughout all of history to speak to people, to encourage people and to give visions and different things. Dreams are powerful. And last week we asked the question, what are your dreams for your faith? What are the things that you hope that you achieve in your faith? And this week we're going to unpack this truth tonight, and we're going to start with this piece, that there is purpose in your circle. Tonight, we're talking specifically about your small group, your friends, the circles that you run, and acknowledge that there's a truth, that there is a purpose with the people that you hang out with. This could be a team, this could be a club, this could be the people who play your position in your sport, or maybe your section in band or choir. This could be the people that you work with, or coworkers, coffee shop people. Maybe it's your friends from a class from a few weeks ago or a few years ago that you still hang out with. Basically, your circle is your friends around you. And the reality is that all throughout history, ever since humans were created, humans actually ran in circles. This is kind of a slang term that's used throughout all of history, but circles define just the people that are around you. And Jesus, well, he's included too. People have always run in circles. There's a reality that we've always run in circles. And another reality is that Jesus ran in circles. He had 12 people that kind of followed him around, his close group of people that he was constantly pouring into, that he was building up, 12 guys that he chose to join in his mission. And Jesus knew that his circle had a purpose. Jesus wanted this circle to follow him and join him on his mission to right the wrong things in the world. And this story at Jesus, it continues where Jesus is actually no longer with this circle, but his circle is given this task or this great commission. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? When he dies, yes. What does he tell his people? When he comes back, he tells his people something, and then he goes away. Thank you. He says, go and make disciples. He gives his circle this kind of commandment, this dream, this goal that he has to right the wrong things in the world. Now, if you were one of the 12 people and you're hanging out with Jesus after he just literally died and then came back to life, so you're chilling with Jesus and he says this, I want you to go all over the world and make disciples out of everybody and baptize everyone all over the world, every nation, all people. That feels like a pretty light task, right? Something you would just pretty easily be able to do, something you could just do casually on weekends and then not really have to worry about. No, if I was one of Jesus' disciples, which I am, but if I was one of those original 12, I would be thanks for the real cool dream. Thanks for vision casting this. This is impossible. And so these 12 had this incredible mission that they were set out on to really change the world. And it's kind of like you can go back in time and kind of wonder, what did they do? Were they all master evangelists, or were they all doctors of theology, or were they all pastors? And they weren't. They were fishermen and doctors and physical doctors and normal people jobs that these people were given that were supposed to completely change the whole entire course of history. Well, tonight we're going to be in the book of Acts. And I'll give you a second if you want to turn there. We're going to be in Acts 2. If you've got a Bible or your phone, go ahead and take your phone out and pull it up. Would love to have it in front of you today. We're going to be in Acts 2. Acts was written by a guy named Luke, who was kind of known as the beloved family doctor. He was a literal physical doctor to Paul. So you think of the family doctor that you have. Mine growing up was Dr. O'Quinn. He's super. Actually, he died. I shouldn't have. Sorry, dude. Rip. But Dr. O'Quinn was my family doctor, and Luke was Paul's. He was this doctor that existed, and this was written around 60 to 63 A.D. And Acts is this book of the Bible that tells the birth story, or the origin story, a growth story of the church that we know today. So what's happening is, in chapter 2, we open with this scene called Pentecost, which is maybe a word that you've heard before, or you've heard of Pentecostal, which is a religion or a denomination of faith. This Pentecost event was basically, there were 100 and some guys that were hanging out in a room, and the Spirit of the Lord, which is something that Jesus promised his followers, came to them and was with them, and they could feel it, and they had this Spirit of the Lord that kind of came upon them, and these kind of 100 dudes birthed this church that we know today. And we see this incredible kind of story where in the beginning of chapter 2 there's 100 and some people, and then by the end of chapter 2 there's 3,000 people, with numbers being added daily to the church. More than 3,000. This was just in one day. And we get to the end of chapter 2, and we get a glance at what the beginning of the church looked like. What the first church kind of looked like. This kind of relatively, in terms of all population of the world, what it looked like. Acts 2, 42 through 47 is where we're going to be. It says this: all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals. A deep sense of awe came over them, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place, and they shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and their money and with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper and shared meals with great joy and generosity, all while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. In this story, we get a picture of what the early church looked like, what a circle of people who love Jesus look like, how it kind of runs. And Scripture says that they were devoted to a few really important things. Number one, it says that they were devoted to teaching, and so they were learning. Not only were they learning the things that people had been learning and devoting themselves to throughout all of history in Christianity, which was Old Testament learnings in the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. They were also learning about the teachings of Jesus, which was radically different from things that people of Jesus and Jewish faith had been learning their whole entire lives. They were learning about brand new things through the course of history. They devoted themselves to this teaching. They devoted themselves to fellowship. We don't often use the word fellowship. I would maybe replace it with the word fun, being together. They enjoyed hanging out with their circle and having fun with their circle. And lastly, the best one of all of them is they ate together. People like to eat together, and that's something that we do as humans because it's a thing that we do in our circles. They ate meals together. They had communion together, which we've done on Sundays before. You may have been a part of it, maybe not. They did meals together, and they constantly were together. The reality is the people in the early church were devoted to a few small things that made some really big things happen. The reality is sitting with a few people and learning isn't this massive undertaking. It's something we actually all do every single day, right? We sit in groups of some random amounts of people and we learn. This is something that we do naturally. They had fellowship. They did stuff together. That's something that you guys are naturally doing every day in this room. We're doing that right now. And they ate meals together. You might do this with your family. How many of you have eaten with your friends outside of school in the last week? Anybody? This is something we do. Like, we do these things together. And the reality is, if you go back over 2,000 years ago and you look at a picture of the early church, a lot of what we have today and the things we enjoy about movement today come from the small things that this small group of Jesus followers started to do, that revolutionized the way that we know Jesus and the way we know God. And really, in this story, we see circles of people doing small things that created a movement that literally swept the whole entire world. The church spread fast worldwide, and it says that it was adding to that number 3,000. They were adding daily. If you want to look at a timeline of the Bible, we can get to today and see that there are still numbers being added daily, because there are circles of people who love Jesus that are doing small things that create a big impact. This is the truth of our world today. When you're with your circle, there's a purpose that's bigger than just being together. Your circle can do small things that create change. For this story, circles of people did small things like eating and praying and learning together that met millions of people with the gospel of Jesus. There's a reality that any good coach that you will ever have for any sport or whatever, any good coach wouldn't say that it's just about playing the sport. They'd say it's like bigger than football, or it's like bigger than just hitting. It's bigger than just playing basketball. Any good band director or choir director would say it's not just about making music. It's bigger than that. Like, there's more at play here. Any good boss would say it's not just about making coffee. Any good grocery store worker would be like, it's not just about bagging groceries. And any good God, which is our one true God, tells us that it's not just about being together. There's a purpose in your circle that's bigger than you. And small things create big change. Maybe we've heard of the butterfly effect before. Like how the wings of a butterfly, right, can make a change, cause a tornado on the other side of the world. Small things can create big change. God, who designs us for community, tells us that community is more important than just being together. And this example of the early church isn't powerful just because people gathered together. The power from this example in Acts is in these people that were gathered together saw it as something that was bigger than themselves. They devoted themselves to a few simple things that created generations of change. And the reality is, if there's a generation that's more aware of injustice in the world and things that are wrong with our world, with our society, I would say it's actually your generation. You can disagree with me on that. I feel like you guys are really in tune with things that you wish you could change about the world. Am I wrong? You understand the things that you wish you could impact, the ways that the world maybe has been wrong, or the ways that there have been systemic things that have hurt people for years and years and years. And you see things in the world that are wrong, injustices in our country, injustices in Kansas City. You probably see them in your schools. You probably see them in your neighborhood. And I'm convinced that God gives us each something that breaks our heart. I think that God equips every single one of us with one thing. Maybe it's homelessness. For my wife, it's every time there's someone on the side of the road that needs something, we have to stop. And my inclination as a kid, what I was taught as a kid was hey, don't make eye contact. We're going to lock the doors and we're going to drive past. We don't do that because that's the thing that God gave her that breaks her heart. And I think we all have something that breaks our heart. Maybe it's homelessness, maybe it's mental health, maybe it's church hurt, maybe it's adoption. This list could go on and on and on. And the reality is that God loves you so much that he surrounded you with people to help you on this mission of what God is doing in making the wrong things in the world right. The reality is that God uniquely positions you and positioned you to help people around you by doing small things that create big change. This is how we were designed for community. And all throughout history, God has used small circles of people to accomplish big things. You look back at in the times of racial crisis, and when there were people who did sit-ins that you've read about in history class, right? You've heard of these where people would go and sit in stores, and these were small groups of people. A lot of the reforms that you know today that have benefited you were actually because small groups of people started doing small things that led to really big change. The fact that, this is just a really practical example for me. The guy who created insulin, I have type 1 diabetes for anyone who doesn't know. The guy who created insulin created it to be totally free because it's as necessary as air for type 1 diabetics. And the price over the last 20 years has increased by 400% every year. It's skyrocketed. And when I was early in my career at a different town, I had to choose between, when COVID hit, rent increased and insulin increased. I had to choose between having to... There it is. I had to choose between having a house and paying for insulin, is where I was at. And the last thing I ever wanted to do was actually move in with my soon-to-be in-laws. But I had to make a choice. And because of something small that someone did, had some conversations with some political people, the price of insurance and insulin and all the things changed, and I don't pay a lot for insulin now because it's like a super practical thing that small groups of people did small things that created a really big change for millions of people. And the reality is that the things that God gives you that breaks your heart are things that he's also putting people around you that probably have the similar thing, probably have that similar heartbreak. And part of what I think is really important that we do is we spend time dreaming in our circles. I think there's a reality that a lot of times we get together and we make it just about being together, which is like cool. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, but the reality is there's also bigger things at play. And you have the ability to not only like change your small area, change your school, change Kansas City, like you get to change the world because of the way that God enables you and your friends. So the question is, do you spend time dreaming with your circle? Part of the heartbeat of who we are at Movement and who like Heartland is as a church is really this idea of small groups. This is something that we do every week. We kind of started with it last week, and we'll do this basically every week all semester. Because we believe that community is something that's really important to Jesus. We also believe that in your community there are ways that you can impact your world every day. Small groups are a great place for you to ask questions and wrestle with tough stuff. And for small groups to work well, I hope you understand that you're actually really important to small groups. Like, your being here on Wednesdays is really important for, like, what we get to do. Like, we're, as leaders and as adults, and, like, we show up, and we really just kind of hope you're here because you're really important to what we do. God designed us for community, and you are who makes Movement what it is. Tonight in your small groups, I want to challenge you to think of like one dream or one thing that your small group can do to maybe serve or meet a need in Kansas City. The idea of this series is we're dreaming about things that we can do with our faith and things that we can do with our circles. I want to literally challenge you, and I would love to help with this in any way, but I want to challenge you tonight to think about what's something you can do with your small group to like serve Kansas City. Maybe serve in your school. Maybe you're like going and reading like books to an English learning class at a school, or that's what I used to do in college with a small group of friends. We would go after our college classes, and there was a group of Spanish-only speaking students at this elementary, and we would go and we would read books to them after school in English and help them just learn English relationally. Maybe you're going to go pick up trash. Maybe you're going to serve with City Union Mission downtown. There's a million ways to serve and a million things to do, and we want to help you. We want to like give you space to dream about what that would look like. So I'm going to pray. But before I do, I want to ask you this question that you think about as you go to your small groups. What's your dream for your circle? What's your dream for the people around you? It's a really simple question, really practical. What ways do you like hope that your circle can have? How do you hope your circle can change the world? It's a really simple question tonight. I'm going to pray, and we'll go to small groups. God, thank you for this time that we get to like acknowledge that you love us and you designed us for community. Thank you for the small groups of people thousands of years ago, God, that started meeting in dangerous places and hard places and new places and doing small things like having fun together and eating together and just learning together that created really this environment that we get to have today. If it wasn't for just the incredible planning that you have and the love that you have for us, we wouldn't get to like do this and have fun doing things like this. So you designed us to share meals and to share fellowship and prayers and learn. You designed us for that because it's a way of you showing how much you love us. Bless this time together tonight. God, help us love our city more. We want to make an impact, not just so things can be better, but so more people can know you. That's what it's all about. Bless this time together. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.